where you can access the latest US news.
This is my Andrew Yang story. When I first heard about Andrew Yang, it was through the internet, it was through sellers, and at some point I was a huge Bernie supporter. But after seeing Andrew, I realized that I want a president that inspires me to go vote. I want someone with ideas, I want someone with vision, I want somebody that's not scared to take the right decisions. I don't want a career politician. I want somebody that wants to come to the United States and make it better. His ideas to help with climate change, his ideas to work with education, his ideas with the UBI, in which we're going to create a society that cares about all of us, not just the poor, not just the rich, all of us. That's why I stand with Andrew Yang.
So my Yang story might be a little bit different. I'm someone who was originally a doubter. I had heard about him early in the year, and I'm a lifelong progressive. I thought maybe this is Bernie's time to shine. There were a few other candidates I was excited about. But then this businessman comes out of nowhere. Is this just a publicity stunt? It wasn't until the first debate when I heard him speak, and there was an authenticity about him. And his answers were so direct and so straightforward. He's not regurgitating the same, tired political rhetoric that we're so used to hearing. There's something so refreshing about that. So I looked up every video, I watched every podcast, I dug deep into his policies, and I got yanged. There's something so exciting about this campaign. I don't think there's any policy on offer that can do as much to transform our society, to address the deep discord and inequality and financial insecurity and the divisions. I've been so worried about our country for so long, but nobody is uniting people from across the political spectrum the way that Andrew is. Nobody has a bigger tent. I've never seen anything like this campaign in my life, and I'm so excited. I've never been this excited before about a candidate. I'm just so happy to be part of the Yang Gang, and that's why I support Andrew Yang.
Hey, this is Jamie, and this is my Yang story. The first time I had heard Andrew was on the Joe Rogan podcast, and like many people, I initially wrote off the freedom dividend proposal, and upon hearing his explaining and how beneficial it would be, how pragmatic it is, I came around to support it. But one of the things that stood out to me the most was how understanding and empathetic he was for Trump voters in the economic situations they found themselves in. I live in rural Ohio. I'm smack dab in the middle of Trump country. The neighbor 2 houses down the house from me has a giant Trump flag way in their yard. And these aren't horrible people. They're just people who have lost opportunities, and they wanted to throw the human Molotov cocktail that is Trump into the system and destroy it. But Andrew offers a much better solution for my community. He knows there's brain drain in rural areas of the country, and all these talented people are building up tech and finance industries in New York and in California and Boston. And not only are we losing manufacturing jobs in these areas, but we're also losing people who build up businesses. He devoted his life to doing that, and his platform now is going to bring that to all of us, and I have so much respect for him. He's also signed the pledge to end the forever wars. That's another huge policy for me, because no matter how well we're doing here, it is important that we are not destroying the lives of other people with irresponsible foreign policy. And beyond the serious issues, I just love how wholesome he is and how funny he is, and how we need that in our country. Someone who can unite us all as a good, genuine person. And I'm so excited to be supporting him.
Yo, what's up everybody? This is Manic, and I want to tell you all why I support Andrew Yang. I believe humanity first is the only way forward. I believe that he is the only person that is right for this job. I've never been this passionate about another candidate, period. That's real talk. I love the fact that it's all about not left, not right, but forward. I want to underscore the importance of that because I think we all need to take a step back and really rethink the way that we're approaching not only all problems, but all political problems. Bottom line is, he's got practical solutions. The man is down to earth, and he's a real human being and very genuine. And I really appreciate all that. And I hope we get him into the White House in 2020. And he's a baller, and he can ball. So Andrew Yang, let's ball. All right, 2020.
Hey everyone, this is my Yang story. So before being full-on Yang Gang, my wife and I supported two other candidates. We were really excited when Beto O'Rourke initially announced he was running for president. We donated to his campaign, and then he went on his information finding tour, and it didn't really seem to end. He didn't have a platform already in place that would help move our country forward. Then we were interested in Mayor Pete. We read his book, saw a lot of his line campaign videos and his interviews, read his policies, and we really like him. We like how smart he is, his background. We like that he's young. He has some innovative ideas that are a little different than a lot of the other candidates. But I had seen the Joe Rogan podcast with Andrew Yang, and it kind of planted that seed in my head. He was just so different than everyone else. He spoke differently. He had different ideas, like his freedom dividend, $1,000 a month for every citizen over the age of 18. And the more I would just come back and either rewatch the Joe Rogan podcast or like see him on another podcast or a long form interview, I was convinced that he was the candidate for me. And I think he's the candidate that can lead America forward. He understands that what automation and AI is doing to all these jobs is going to be almost a disaster for this country if something isn't done beforehand. He's also one of the only candidates that even talks about stay-at-home parents and caregivers and like the creative people in America. And so as a home dad myself with two little ones, just the fact that he understands that stay-at-home parents have an important job, an important role in society, and then that $1,000 a month for the freedom dividend would, like, my family doesn't need it, but it actually would make me feel like it had a little more purpose. Even them raising two kids, and I know that's a lot of purpose behind it. Some days you don't feel like you're being recognized as a contributing member of society, and that really hit home for me. Andrew Yang just talking about his wife is at home with her two kids, one of whom is autistic. On the days that I'm really struggling, I have some of Andrew Yang's videos, and I see that someone who's running to be president cares about me and kind of like the little struggle I go through.
Hi, I'm Kathy from Kentucky. I'm 47, a wife, a mother, and a grandmother, and I support Andrew Yang. I voted for Donald Trump in 2016. Quite honestly, I lived in this political bubble most of my life. I always voted or supported within the lines of what I thought was correct. I mean, he's a Republican, so he had to be the right choice. I was wrong. Our country is so divided now, and so much good work has been undone. I started searching for someone who, genuinely cared about all Americans, who wanted to include everyone and to unite us and maybe bring us back a little hope. Someone who simply cared about humanity. I looked at a few candidates, but really started to just, get discouraged. Then I found Andrew Yang. First thing that caught my attention was his Humanity First campaign. Then I found that he had tons of policies on his platform that really spoke to me. But one of those in particular was the freedom dividend. And before you start thinking, oh, she just wants a handout. My husband's a full truck driver. I worked nearly 25 years as a nurse, and now I'm a stay-at-home mom. So what I'd really like, I'm looking for someone who cares about the work that I and so many other people do in our homes for our families. The freedom dividend, it gives actual value to that work. It is not meant to be a living wage, but it's a huge tribute to those of us who aren't compensated for our time. It takes away this weight and guilt that I think some of us feel because, we aren't contributing financially. Of course, then I started to realize what the freedom dividend would mean to so many Americans in so many different ways. I mean, imagine a happier America. Wouldn't that be amazing? Altogether, his platform just made sense to me, but there was a huge problem. He's a Democrat. I am not supposed to vote for a Democrat, right? So, but the more I learned about him and policies, the more engaged I became. In fact, I recently changed my political party just so I could vote for him in my state's primary election. You know, so whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, independent, or politically disengaged, I challenge you, get out of your bubble, get out of your comfort zone, be willing to get really uncomfortable, because that's where real change happens. This is our chance. We cannot risk choosing the wrong person again. You know, your family, my family, and really all of America deserve better, and I believe Andrew Yang is for better. And this is part of why he has my vote. I hope you'll join me. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Morgan. I'm 23 years old. I live in Denver, and this is my Yang story. I was a big Bernie Sanders supporter in 2016. I planned on supporting him again in 2020. I supported Bernie because he's a man of integrity. He's clearly a public servant who has been consistent with what he says for decades now. When I heard Andrew Yang on Joe Rogan's podcast, I was initially very skeptical. I thought, who is this guy? Why would I vote for him? I was very skeptical. By the end of the podcast, I was on board 100% because I think that Andrew is also a person of integrity, immense integrity, the same way Bernie Sanders is. But I think that the freedom dividend would be transformative, and I think that it could happen, and it would go a long way to solve a lot of our social issues today. Specifically, I was raised by a single mother, and I can't think of anybody that the $1,000 a month would help more. It would have been a game changer for us, and I want every single mother in my community to receive the freedom dividend, so that they can have more stability in their home, in raising their children, and a little bit more time to spend with their children. Additionally, I have a girlfriend who's a crafter. GDP values her work at essentially nothing, even though it adds an immense amount of value to our community. And I think the freedom dividend would go a long way to addressing the value that she adds and does not get compensated for. And that is why I support Andrew Yang.
Thank you for listening. See you in the next video. Please subscribe our channel. Bye bye.